Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah wa salatu wassalam ala Rasulullah. We continue reading from Imam Al-Ghazali's Ihya Ulumuddin, book 20, on the prophetic ethics. And as I said before, it goes beyond really the ethics, the mannerism, the etiquette, because there are, for example, today we'll be dealing with certain theological issues because it's really the account of his miracles which prove his truth, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So that is, though it is written under that title, the book is Adab al-Maisha wa Akhlaq al-Nubuwwah, but this part is about theology. He was al-Amin, he was the trustworthy, he was he would say the absolutely the truth. And we talk about the Prophet ﷺ before becoming a prophet. And in general, there are few traits of the Arabs, pre-Islamic Arabs, despite the those who were idol worshippers, but there were certain things like they were generous. They are still are. They would say the truth. They do not lie. And so there are certain things that the helpful. There were alliances for to protect the underdog, to protect the weak, those who do not have tribes to protect them, the wayfarer. So there were certain things. So the concept of Jahiliyyah, the primary issue is really idol worshipping. There were definitely certain social norms that are absolutely unacceptable. Femicide, and so talk about burying baby girls alive. So that's one of the things. One can talk about certain social behavior, but in general, I just wanted to highlight the issue of truth saying. So the text goes like this. Imam Ghazali said, know that if one witnessed Prophet Muhammad's qualities, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and heard the reports which deal with his character, actions, qualities, habits, natural disposition, his ruling the various classes of people, his guiding their organization, his acquaintance with the various classes of people, leading them to obey him, together with what is related of his wondrous answers in regard to perplexing questions, his wondrous manner of maintaining the well-being of the people, his excellent indications in regard to the details of the outer law and the outer law. talk about ومحاسن إشاراته في تفصيل ظاهر الشرع, because if it's not the outer law, then you talk about the inner dimension, that's the heart, where the law does not really interfere per se, but it is still the most important thing ultimately. Remember, إلا من أتى الله بقلب سليم, except those who come with a flawless, spotless heart, cleansed, pure from all these negative emotions, such as hatred and envy and planning pure evil. Talk about genocide, when human beings force famine as a policy to break the will of people. Where there is an outer law, there is the inner dimension. At any rate, he says, its most elementary subtleties being beyond the grasp of the leges, the jurists, the lawyers in the juridical sense, not in the modern sense, and the wise men, although it takes their entire lifetime. There could not remain for him the slightest doubt or suspicion that all this was not acquired by human means. Rather, all this cannot be conceived except by seeking heavenly help and divine power. Nor could all this be conceived by a liar or by a confused person. And this is why, I began with an introduction about the prophet as being known as a trustworthy person who did not and would not lie. In fact, the Prophet ﷺ refrained from doing things that youngsters did in Mecca. Moreover, Prophet Muhammad ﷺ's good qualities and his virtues were absolute testimony of his truth. So much so that when a true-born Arab saw him, he said, "By Allah, this is not the face of a liar." And today, you ask a psychologist, and they will tell you when one is lying and when one is not. So it's obviously you feel immediately comfortable with the Prophet ﷺ because of this trait. If his good qualities alone were testimony to his truth, how much more so is his truth validated by the testimony of one who witnessed his character and studied his qualities in all his dealings. We, however, only presented some aspects of his character in order that the fine quality of his character may become known, and in order that one become mindful of his truth, of his high rank, and his great place with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Moreover, Allah bestowed, subhanahu wa ta'ala, He bestowed all that upon him, even though he was untaught. We know that the Prophet ﷺ, was illiterate. In the and this trait, our scholars said that this is a shortcoming in all people except the Prophet ﷺ, because the later on when we dwell upon the idea, where would he get all this if he were when he was illiterate? It has to be revelation and things that he said that we know that they are true scientifically, for things that science did not really deal with at the time. And we will get this we'll get together inshallah very quickly. Moreover, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, so he did bestow on all that upon him, even though he was untaught, did not occupy himself with learning, did not examine books, did not set out in search of learning, and did not cease being an orphan in his childhood, and was weak and regarded as weak amongst the chiefs of the Arabs. Weak, of course, we talk about he did not have a network of support the way the Arabs did at the time, the tribal support. He had his uncle Abu Talib, but once his uncle Abu Talib passed away along with his wife Khadija, he lost two of the most important supporters in his life ever. Hence, from where did he obtain the fine qualities of character and manner, the knowledge of the workings of jurisprudence only, for example, besides the other sciences? Not to mention his true knowledge of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, his angels and his books, the special properties of prophecy, were it not revelation. From whence can the human faculty do this by itself? Furthermore, if only these matters, also there's an answer here about the philosophers respond, and a response, for example, to the philosophers who thought that you can attain that level on your own, that it is achievable. Of course, it's not. So it has to be revelation. From whence can the human faculty do this by itself? Furthermore, if only these matters were attributed to Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, it would be enough. Whereas they were revealed his signs and miracles, which the scholar cannot doubt. We will mention of their totality those signs and miracles which the reports have spread far and wide, and which are contained in the sound books as an indication of their great quantity, without, however, going into the detailed narrative. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala changed the customary course of events through the agency of Prophet Muhammad ﷺ more than once. The first sign mentioned here is the event called the split. The moon was split when he was at Mecca, when he was asked for a sign, and people at the time saw it, and the moon splitting. So they talk about a cosmic event that took place on the surface of the moon. I'm not adopting any particular specific such event on the moon, but we know that the moon does have rift valleys. In fact, numerous really such rifts. Many of them will you talk about, for example, the Alpine Valley, and again, I'm not saying that this really was what took place at the time, because the Great Rift Valley is greater than this. There must be something else, but I'm simply referring to some things that do exist on the moon, and the only reason why I'm referring to this particular Rift Valley on the moon, it is 160 kilometers long. It is sometimes 2,000 meters deep. It is 20 kilometers wide. So is it possible that it could be seen from? I'm not saying again that this was the event. The description of this Rift Valley has one word that caught my attention, saying that it looks like a giant crack in the lunar topography. Again, I would stop here, but I have read about, again, these are astrophysical narratives from scientific, non-Islamic, non-Muslim scientific sources. So there was such an event and it was a sign associated with the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The second one, he fed the great party of men in the house of Jabir ibn Abdullah al-Ansari. This is, of course, we talk about a blessing really unique to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The context of this was the companions were digging the trench surrounding Medina. They were hungry, really. And the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the same, and the scarce resources. They were tired, and Jabir, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala be pleased with him, went to his wife. So they have prepared food. It's good for for a small party, as we say. But and then he told the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam to join him for lunch. And at that moment, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam invited everyone, the whole company of people, very large number of people. And literally, Jabir radhiyallahu anhu panicked, and he hastened to his wife. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam told him to tell his wife not to touch anything. And I understand, it's about the blessing. It's about the blessing. All of them ate. The last people to eat were the Jabir, his wife, and the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The same thing, we have a third event, feeding the great party of men in the house of Abu Talha, Zayd ibn Sahel radiallahu anhu. He fed the great party of men at the battle of Al-Khandaq. That's what we have just mentioned earlier. Once he fed 80 people from 4 mud of barley and a she-kid, which is one of the children of goats and superior to the yearling goat. And the mud is really a very small amount of a quantity of food, just simply almost like filling your 2 palms with barley, for example. That's approximately what a mud is. Again, he fed more than 80 men from 4 round cakes of barley, which Ibn Malik carried in his hand. He fed the army from a small quantity of dates, which the daughter of Bashir ibn Sa'd carried in her hand. Moreover, after they ate and were satiated, there still remained in excess. They washed from a small bowl, which was so narrow that Prophet ﷺ could not stretch his hand inside. So many people basically had the water emerged from between his fingers. Again, it's the blessing, and the whole thirsting army drank. There being no water, he caused the water of ablution to pour forth at Ain Tabuk. And another time, Tabuk is really northwest of the Arabian Peninsula, just before the borders with Jordan. And one thing about Tabuk is that it has been mentioned as the border, the furthest point south, as the border of the Holy Land in the Islamic worldview. Furthermore, the army at Ain Tabuk, which numbered in the thousands, drank until they quenched their thirst, whereas 1,500 drank from the well of Hudaybiyah, a well which previously had no water. Prophet Muhammad ﷺ ordered Umar ibn al-Khattab to feed 400 riders from dates, which were arranged in the form of camel lying on its breast, which is the place of its kneeling. Thereupon Umar radiallahu anh, fed all of them, and there remained some dates which he kept. He threw sallallahu alaihi wasallam, a handful of dust against the enemy, the army, the foes, if you will, and their eyes were blinded. The Quran was revealed in regard to that, stating, "You did not throw when you threw, but Allah threw." Allah abolished the practice of divination by sending Prophet Muhammad ﷺ. Thus, the practice of divination ceased to exist, although formerly it existed openly. When the platform was made for him, the beam which he supported himself while speaking squeaked so that all of his companions heard what seemed like a camel sound. Thereupon Prophet ﷺ grasped the beam and it became silent. Longing to the Prophet ﷺ, he urged the Jews to covet death, but at the same time informing them that they did not wish it. An obstacle intervened between them and their speech, and they were unable to utter their desire for death. And this is what is mentioned in a verse which is read publicly on Friday in all the mosques of Islam from east to west as an exaltation for the sign therein. Prophet Muhammad ﷺ related the affairs which were beyond the reach of sensual or mental perception. He warned Uthman ibn Affan that a calamity would overtake him, after which he would enter paradise. He, of course, was assassinated. He warned Ammar bin Yasir that the party of the unjust men will kill him. And this happened after the death of the Prophet ﷺ, after in the fitna, the general fitna that took place between the Muslims. Prophet Muhammad ﷺ related that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would make peace between the two great Muslim parties through the agency of Al-Hasan ibn Ali. Prophet Muhammad ﷺ related concerning a man who fought for the sake of Allah that he was of the people of hell. This became, and this is really, of course, simply knowing the unseen, this became evident because the man killed himself later on. He was injured and he simply practically committed suicide. This is also, it means that you cannot, decide to, there are two aspects to, probably many aspects to euthanasia, but let me put it this way, from an Islamic perspective, you are not allowed to end your life, no matter what degree of pain you go through. And physicians cannot administer this. This is not a right. It's a grave sin. That's not really a medical practice to assist people to die, to end their life. There was a very famous physician in the United States, Dr. Kevorkian, who devised a machine to assist people to die, and he was put to trial, etc. And in Europe, especially like in Holland, it is permissible, but also in other countries as well. And now there is a case of a young woman who has really psychological problems, and her psychologist suggested that she would ask for euthanasia. Euthanasia. What a treatment, really. Now, these are all divine matters which certainly cannot be known by any of the ways through which knowledge was promoted, not by the stars, by inspecting the shoulder, or by twisting the hair, by lines on sand, nor by the auguring of bears, but by Allah's teaching and revelation. So just think about it today. In the language of today, uh, no no crystal ball, if you will. Suraqa bin Malik pursued Prophet Muhammad during the migration story, but the feet of his horse sank, and every time and he knew immediately, Suraqa knew immediately that this is because this is the Prophet ﷺ. And the dust followed him in his steps until he asked for help. Then Prophet ﷺ wished him well and freed his horse. At the same time, he told him that he would wear on his forearms the bracelets of Khosrows, the Persian emperor. So he promised them these, and it was so. Like during the time of Umar ibn al-Khattab, Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, on the night when the murder took place, reported the murder in the name of the murder of Al-Aswad al-Ansi, the liar, who was in Sana'a in Yemen at the time. He attacked 100 of the Quraysh who were awaiting him. He cast dust over their heads, and they did not see him. A male camel complained, but became submissive to Prophet Muhammad ﷺ in the presence of his companions. He said to a group of his companions who were gathered, "The tooth of one of you is in the fire, similar to Uhud." They all died on the right path, but one of them apostatized and was killed for his apostasy. Prophet Muhammad ﷺ said to another group, "The last one of you is dead in fire." And the last one of them fell lifeless into the fire, where he burned and died. He called 2 trees, thereupon they came to him and joined. Then he ordered them, and they separated. Prophet Muhammad, we will go over the chain of narrators, but I'm going to finish reading them. Prophet Muhammad was of medium stature, but when he walked with tall people, he was as tall as they. I think it's important to, as I said in the last session, or at least probably the one before, it's about the the presence of the Prophet ﷺ, not that his height changed. Prophet Muhammad ﷺ urged the Christians to imprecate him, but they refused. Moreover, Prophet Muhammad ﷺ informed them that if they did imprecate, they would die, and since they knew the truth of his statement, they refused. Al-Mubahala. Ibn Tufayl and Ibn Qais, who were the 2 horsemen and the scorners of the law of the Arabs, came to him and intended to kill him. However, an obstacle intervened and Prophet Muhammad cursed him. The result was that Ibn Tufayl was killed by a plague, and Ibn Qais, this Arbad, was killed by a thunderbolt which burned him. A thunderbolt could reach 1 million volts, much more, 20,000 degrees Celsius. Prophet Muhammad ﷺ related that he would kill Ubay ibn Khalaf al-Jumahi. At the Battle of Uhud, Prophet Muhammad scratched him slightly, and Ubay died thereof. Prophet Muhammad was fed a poisoned shoulder, with the result that the one who ate it with him died. However, Prophet Muhammad continued to live for 40 years thereafter. Moreover, the poisoned shoulder spoke to him, that is, it informed him that it was poisoned. He related the Battle of Badr, the slaughtering places of the chiefs of Quraysh. He further more acquainted them man after man of their respective places. Not one of them deviated from that place. Prophet Muhammad warned that a portion of his nation would raid by sea, and it was so. In fact, one of the companions who joined the raid by sea was buried in Cyprus. She joined him. The earth was rolled up for him, and he was shown its eastern parts and its western parts. Prophet Muhammad reported that a king of his nation would reach those areas collected for him, and it was so. For a king of his nation did reach from the beginning of the east, that is, from the land of the Turks, to the extreme west, that is, the Sea of Spain, and the land of the Berbers. However, they did not spread out in the south and in the north exactly as Prophet Muhammad had related. He told his daughter Fatima anha, that she would be the first of his family to reach him, that is, to die, to follow him. And it was so. Prophet Muhammad told his wives that she who had the longest hand would be the quickest to reach him, like to die, and it was Zainab bint Jahsh who was the longest of hand in regarding to alms. This is about generosity and almsgiving. It is it's metaphorical. So that's being most generous, who was the first to reach him. He stroked the udder of a barren ewe, which gave no milk, and which previously did not have any milk, and she gave milk. This was the cause of Ibn Mas'ud becoming a Muslim. Prophet Muhammad did this. Another time, the tent of Ma'bad, the Khuzait, the eye of a certain of his companions was dislodged and fell. Thereupon Prophet restored it with his hand, and it became the handsomer and sounder of his two eyes. Prophet Muhammad spit into the eye of Sayyidina Ali ibn Abi Talib, who had an eye sickness at the Battle of Badr, and it became sound. Then Prophet Muhammad dispatched him with the banner. They used to hear the food, which was before Prophet Muhammad, praise Allah. The foot of a certain of his companions was smitten. Prophet Muhammad rubbed the foot with his hand, and from that moment it was well. The provisions of the army with Prophet Muhammad ﷺ having become small in quantity, the Prophet ﷺ called for all that remained. When the very small quantity was collected, he blessed it and ordered them to take it. This they did, and there was not a vessel in the camp but that it was full. Al-Hakim ibn al-As ibn Wa'il imitated Prophet Muhammad ﷺ gait in a derisive manner. Thereupon Prophet ﷺ said, "Become like that," and until he died, Al-Hakam did not stop trembling. Prophet ﷺ asked a woman in marriage. Her father said to him, "Verily, she has leprosy," as an excuse and as an obstacle. The truth being, however, that she was not leprous. Thereupon Prophet ﷺ said, "Be so," and she became leprous. This woman was the mother of Sahib ibn al-Basra, the poet. So to go back, the hadith about splitting the moon is agreed upon, mentioned by Al-Bukhari and Muslim. The hadith of Jabir feeding a large number of people is also narrated by Bukhari Muslim. Feeding the large number of people in the house of Abu Talha is narrated by Bukhari and Muslim. Feeding 80 people from simply 4 mud. This hadith is mentioned by Al-Bukhari without mentioning the number of people. Feeding more than 80 men from barley loaves that Sidna Sultan held them in his hand. This was narrated by Imam Muslim. Feeding the army from dates, that like small amount of dates that they had. It has good chain of narrators. Inshallah, I will continue in the next session with the source of the hadith and whether it is sound or not. Because we have about 45 of these miracles and signs, and inshallah we need to spend either the next session or at least a good portion of it about these the verification of all of these signs and miracles. Until then, سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك نشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.